Republican strategist Morgan Muchnick. Morgan, really great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So the defense is attempting to make the argument that the president was legitimately investigating Burisma for corruption in the spirit of corruption, of this being a legitimate corruption investigation. How do you prove intent in that case?
Well, it's interesting. In order to prove it, proving intent is a notoriously difficult thing, which is why it's often used by defense to deal with issues. This process is a little bit awkward because they're trying to say, well, if you can't prove intent, we're going to assume the worst, which is sort of the opposite of the American tradition of due process, when it's up to the prosecution to prove the intent in a negative way of the person in which they're charging of a crime. Here, you have the Democrats trying to say that it's up to Trump to prove his intent was not problematic in a sense. And that's why I think sometimes a lot of people who are, let's say, supportive of the president, or certainly not supportive of this process, say this really goes counter to the American tradition of due process.
Right. Intent is something that's very difficult to prove and could presumably be argued either way. What do you think is the president's defense team strategy at this point going forward?
Well, I mean, just to take a quick step back, in my opinion, this whole thing is a bit political. So we can have a nuanced discussion, if you like, about what is the definition of intent. For example, in slander or libel in American law, you have to show that a news reporter or someone in a TV network had intent to damage someone's reputation. That's a very hard thing to do. But that's kind of the legal minutia that no one in America really cares about. I mean, if you despise this president, you think he's the worst thing that's ever happened, then you just want to see as much damage done. You almost don't care. No one really thinks the president's going to be removed from office, quite frankly. There are some true believers, but by and large, this is more a political process. So the Democrats are using a political process, and the Republicans are going to be using a political process to make a defense. In the end, it's highly problematic for a lot of analytical, dispassionate people because the process of removing a president from office shouldn't be a political process. It should be something that's only reserved for real high crimes and misdemeanors. And we're having a discussion, you and me, the country, the pundits on the left and the right, they're having all these discussions that surround these issues like you mentioned, intent, but the American people, I don't think, really are thinking that way.
Right. Democrats are also highlighting the fact that there was a quid pro quo, that this was devastating to Ukraine because Ukraine's aid was being withheld with the current threat of Russia. So there's been mounting pressure now on the Republicans to call witnesses after these alleged excerpts, which nobody's really confirmed, have John Bolton saying in his manuscript that basically there was money withheld in exchange for this investigation. Do you think senators will bow to the pressure from the Democrats to call witnesses in this case? And how does that bode with their reputation, with a lot of them up for re-election in November? There's only 4 seats, I believe, that Republicans, the Democrats would need from Republicans to be able to flip control of the Senate.
Correct, but there are also some vulnerable Democrats as well. But think about the language in which we're using. We're using political language. This is what frustrates a lot of people in this town who are very well-meaning and don't approach this as like a never Trumper or all Trump all the time. That we're having this discussion about the politics of individual Senate races. The founding fathers and founding mothers and the original philosopher king type generation that founded America never would have envisioned the use of impeachment to be analyzed and debated in the context in which we're doing tonight. And that's what frustrates a lot of people, very well-meaning people in this town. That being said, I do think there's going to be witnesses because I think that there's going to be a lot of Republican senators that are, let's say, moderates, if you will, not so much politically moderate, but moderate in terms of the process, and Mitt Romney types and people like that. I think they want to support the president, but also be on the side of not automatically rubber stamping the president. So I think they're looking for that middle road within the Republican Party, not the middle road in general.
Not isolating those independents ahead of the November election.
So in my opinion, I think a lot of these Republican senators are going to look to probably do that. I sort of feel like people's minds are mostly made up, but they
Right.
want to do it anyway, so they can appear that they're being
Unfortunately,
thoughtful.
Morgan, we have to leave it there. Really appreciate you coming on.
Sure.
Morgan Muchnick, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, China's